What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Victory Life Legacy Spotlight. We have a new edition today, and we have a very, very special guest, one of the all-time greats at Virginia Tech women's basketball, a woman I'm a fan of personally and athletically, a phenomenal person. She had a great career at Tech. She was feisty, and she was also an outstanding point guard and floor general. So today I have Lisa Witherspoon, aka Spoon, in the house. How you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing fantastic. Just happy and honored to be a part of this.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you. We've been trying to work out the different things, our schedules, but we finally have you on the Victory Life Legacy Spotlight, and this is going to be a great spotlight indeed. You've seen some of these shows I've done, given for Hokie Nation, some of the greats I've had on here, and you were definitely a great. We were there at the same time, not congruently. I will overlap some. I'm a little bit older than you. But I still followed your career indeed, and some of your great teammates we're going to talk about later, and even a great coach you played for. But like all my spotlights, I want to talk about the grind and the journey before you became an All-American and Hall of Fame inductee. I want to talk about when it all started. I want to talk about what happened, where you from, and when did you first get into sports? Because we're going to find out, our guests, our viewers watching this show are going to find out that you weren't always a basketball player. You played multiple sports. So let's talk about it. Where are you from? When did it all get started? Let's go back in time.
All right, let's do it. So I'm from a really small town in North Carolina called Newton.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were just hard workers, and the one thing they did do was support my sister and I in exploring sports and playing different things, and probably just keeping us busy to keep us out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, there weren't women's sports or girls' leagues. So when I first started playing basketball, I played with boys. And I think that's where I kind of got my spunk, because I was little and they would make fun of me. And so I had to become pretty feisty to hold my own. And that's where that started, was I think playing with boys was where I kind of got my spunk. And I remember playing at the Newton Recreation Department. It was all boys. I had a friend that was a neighbor. She jumped on the league with us. She was okay, but she didn't have the feistiness, so
Mm-hmm.
she didn't play as much. But I remember making the all-star team with the boys, and the coach didn't want me to start because he was afraid I was going to get hurt. And boy, did that upset me.
Really?
I was like, I am not going to get hurt. Like, I'm hanging in here with these guys, and then there was something about that talk with my parents where I was like, I'm going to have to work extra hard if I'm going to be able to hold my own, growing up, playing with these boys. And then it became backyard where everybody was coming over, and it was like they all wanted to challenge the girl. So the neighbors would come over, and then I would play one somebody, and then whoever won played the next person. And it just became a lot of fun, and became a thing where it was like the boys started wanting me on their team. And then we would set up to where I could walk to our recreation center, and I would walk there, and we started hustling. They were like, pick up the girl, and everybody's going to think they're going to beat the girl, and our team would always win. And we were hustling, at a young age. It was crazy, but it was a lot of fun. So that's kind of where it got started with basketball. And then along the way, I was like, I want to play baseball. So they didn't have
baseball?
yeah, they didn't have softball leagues for girls at that time. So I was playing, baseball, hardball. And I would go from a basketball game, and I was changing my uniform and then going out and playing baseball with the boys. And finally in middle school, we had a softball team for girls. So I jumped on that. Absolutely loved that. Started playing year round softball. And then also played volleyball in middle school, but I had to be the little setter. And like I think I've told you before, that just was not powerful enough for me. I wanted to spike the ball at people.
Mm-hmm.
So
No doubt.
I kind of went away from that in high school, and I was like, this point guard at our high school, I envied her. Her name was Shannon Spencer, and she played tennis. So I was like, oh, let me see if I could play tennis. Did not know the rules. Somehow made the team. and ended up being successful in tennis. But I think the cross training between all the sports kept me pretty, I don't know, focused, where I didn't burn out. It was just a lot of
Mm,
fun.
yeah. When you were playing with the boys and you were out there competing and you were making a name for yourself, um, did it ever hit you like, this is what I want to do, or was that something you were just in the moment competing? Like, were you just out there trying to take it to them and just, make sure they respected you, or did it hit you then that this is where I'm going to play and this is a sport I'm going to do? Or was
Nah,
that
it
a
was
process?
totally in the moment.
Yeah.
Totally in the moment. It was just taking the next person down, and it was like, who's going to have more bruises, and just it was all about the moment. I didn't even know anything about college level, or I watched it all, but I didn't even know. I was so young when I started everything.
Mm-hmm.
It really didn't hit me until middle school, when I started playing on a really good AAU team, that you know I I was like, wow, like you actually go to college and play the sport. Like I might be able to do this.
Yeah. When you were in middle school, often when I do the interviews and I talk to people, even off air, when I ask about their legacy, their journey to becoming a very good athlete on just their career in sports, when you were in middle school and you were playing multiple sports, playing volleyball and basketball, was there a particular coach or mentor or a teacher that guided you? I'm always intrigued by the different people we come across when we start to make that journey towards our athletic career and accomplishments. Was there someone that came across that stood out to you, that inspired you?
Um, my coaches were great. I really, I think each one of them touched me a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But my my AAU coach, that was the first time I'd ever played AAU, and the point guard I was telling you about, she played on this team that had a younger team, and she had told the coach about me. And so he drove all the way down and he watched me play, and he was like, yes, I want you to play. And they had gone to they qualified for the national tournament every single year.
Mm,
So it was a really good AAU team. And I think when I played at that level, and when he was coaching me and I was playing with all these other great players around me, that was probably when I grabbed hold of basketball and was like, wow, this is fun.
mm,
Because when you're in middle school, you have a couple of good athletes around you, but
yeah.
it's not like you've got five sitting on the bench that can compete with you. And then
Mm-hmm.
when we got to AAU, it was like grinding. It was fun. It was competitive. And our coach was just so supportive, but he pushed you. He created such a confidence level in me, where if I missed my first couple of shots, he'd call a timeout if I stopped shooting and tell me, if you're going to stop shooting, get out of the game. He's like, I need you to shoot. I don't care if you missed a few, and it made me feel like he trusted me and had confidence in me. So I think he was probably the first coach that really had a major impact on my life with basketball.
No question. When you talk about the impact in playing basketball and then also playing other sports, including tennis, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You played, was that in high school or middle school?
High school.
So let's hold off on that. But I do have
Okay.
I'm gonna put you on the spot with this question. And I ask a lot of my guests who play multiple sports. We live in a different world now.
Mhm.
And you have children who are athletes, right?
Right.
And you also play at the highest level. What do you think about today's generation in regards to specialization? Because I have three athletes, and I coach and I mentor and I talk to student athletes all the time. And you and I grew up in an era where, I mean, you're changing the car going to a baseball game, and you played tennis in high school, you played volleyball and basketball, and you were really good in all of them. And I found that consistent amongst all the athletes I've interviewed. What is your take on specialization now, where you have young men and young women who say, you know what, I'm a hooper. I'm just going to hoop. I can play football or I can run track, but this is my sport. What do you think about that mindset today, right now?
I think it's frustrating, because the way they've built up youth sports today, you really do feel like you're behind. if you're playing another sport and then your boys are all out doing the same thing and they're grinding up the same sport and they're getting better and better and better. So I think there's a bit of pressure in today's society that wasn't there when I was growing up, and that's unfortunate. I think our son, he is a phenomenal baseball player. I used to love when he'd get out and play football with the boys and play basketball, and he was good at everything he picked up. Golf, he still golfs today, but in terms of a commitment on a team, there's no time for that with him. Like, he feels like he needs to stay, and that's what he wants to do, is just keep getting better at the one sport. So I do think there's a pressure with that. I would prefer, multiple sport athletes. We've always supported whatever you want to try out for. Like, my daughter rides horses, but right now she wants to do gymnastics again and wanted to play flag football. And we're like, okay, whatever you want to do, just to expose them, but I would prefer that, just because of cross training. And like I said, the burnout playing year round one sport, playing every day or 5 days a week, that's tough. So I just feel like you got to do it in a safe way.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And I've found that, trainers and other people, outside influences, also play a factor, where I hear your coach was so supportive playing AAU, and he pushed you, but knew when to provide support and comfort. And there was no penalty for playing other sports, where it seems now there's some coaches and other mentors that are involved trainers, there's a punitive approach if you don't specialize. But I wanted your take on it because, hearing your story, reading up on you, knowing you personally, you are an amazing athlete, and it's just consistency around the board. When I talk to a variety of athletes that were really great and had the career you had, they all played multiple sports, where now it just seems different. But back to your journey and legacy. So after you had that, middle school years where tough for everybody, but you seem to get through it athletically and academically, you get to high school. And high school is when it really starts to take off for you. But again, basketball was not still at the forefront. You were still talking and jumping around and looking at different sports. Let's talk about the other sports you played, and then when it happened to be, okay, I'm going to take off in basketball. There were other sports you played, which I find amazing because you played tennis. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I played tennis. When I first started, like I said, it was, I didn't know which lines to hit it between doubles and singles. And I made the team because I could run the ball down, and I had hand-eye coordination with the racket, but I had no form, absolutely no form with a forehand or a backhand. I loved spiking the ball, like hitting volleys and stuff like that. But the net, I love playing the net. But I finally just got better and better and better and better along the years, where we won a state championship, my doubles partner and I, my senior year. And that was just a lot of fun. And my coach would joke because, I was our number one seed my last two, maybe it was my sophomore year too. I can't even remember. But I would be playing against these country club girls. They'd come out there with their fancy bags. They had bows in their hair and these big old water jugs with like stickers on them. And I had my cup of water in my racket without a case. My knees had bruises all over them. And it was like, all right, here we go. I had no form. I'm hitting off my back leg, and just chasing stuff down. And I just played, I like spliced the ball, and, I would just corner it. And that was the only way I got through it. It wasn't that I was a great tennis player. I was a feisty tennis player. So it was just kind of how I made it through. But that was just a lot of fun. And it was a totally different sport than basketball, but it cross training, once again, agility work.
But Lisa, you say you weren't a great tennis player, but ultimately, did you not get interest and offers in tennis?
I did for small schools.
I mean,
I did for small schools, but that's just because, I was feisty. And I think every coach probably was like, I could probably get her to like have correct form. I could probably work with her. But no, that was just more fun for me. And my doubles partner was one of my best friends in high school. So we really were feisty together, little water bugs out there. So we had a lot of fun.
Feisty. There's that word again. That describes you to a T. Did you talk trash? I know, like in any sport.
Of course.
Yeah, see, that's what I want people to know. This is your
Of
spotlight.
course.
Tell the truth, because see, people know you as this classy woman now, mother. You're passionate about life and you're working, but you on the court and in sports, you were aggressive.
Oh wow. Well, we were in a conference championship, and Leslie, my doubles partner, she played the back more and I would play the net just so we could get a lob and I could slam it, you know?
Hmm.
But they called a ball out because you called your own lines. And Leslie hit it in. They caught a ball out, and her eyes got so big, she was ready to come across that net at him. And I was like, "Girl, don't even worry about it." I said, "We'll get him back." And they were like, they were we heard them mumbling under their breath and everything else. And
Mm.
finally, Leslie set me up, and this girl lobbed it up to me. I hit it right into her chest, and
Yes.
I didn't mean it like bad, but I was aiming for her, because it was like they done messed up here.
Yeah.
And so then, they got all upset, and I was like, "That's what happens,"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then our coach had to step in, but we did. I mean, we were
Yeah.
feisty when we had to be.
That's what I want to know. And I knew that. I wasn't there. I didn't see the tennis match, but I know how you get down. And that's what made you a great, great all-time competitor. Speaking of that, you had the tennis jump off and it went well, but you start leaning towards basketball. You start getting into that because that is something you started off doing and then you did other sports. But when did it click for basketball? When did it happen? Were you varsity right away? Or did you work your way up like some players, JV, varsity? What
I'm
happened?
glad you asked me that question. When I tried out my freshman year, there was all this hype about me, being this freshman standout coming up. So the coach was so excited. The point guard that I envied, she was a senior. I knew she knew I could ball. And I tried out. Coach White called me, and I know she's probably going to watch this. She calls me, and she's like one of the all-time greats for me. But she calls me in her office, and she was like, she called me Little Bit. She knows a little bit. I think we're going to start you down on JV. As soon as she said that, I felt like crying. My heart sunk.
Mm.
And she was like, "But you keep working hard, and we might pull you up." So I'm in the back gym working with JV, just all kind of mad, and I was like, "No,
Mm.
I deserve to be up there, but it wasn't going to let it get me down." They pull me up for the first scrimmage for varsity, and I get in there and I am just stealing balls and like dishing them off. And I was like, "I'm going to show them this is where I need to be." I was all fight. And it wasn't too long after they pulled me up, and there were a couple of girls on the team that were seniors. And they were actually, my sister was a senior. And they were like, "If she plays ahead of me, we're quitting,
Mm-hmm.
we're quitting." And, I got a lot of grief from them. Like people made fun of me, like just kind of came down on me. And it was like, I can't help, what the coach does with me. So ended up those two quit, and I ended up starting, my freshman year, and we won the state championship. So it's like, there you
That's
go.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yep. So we won the
Wow.
state championship, and Coach White ended up leaving that year. She got a college coaching position, which was devastating, but we got another good coach in. And I think at that point, winning the state championship, I was like, this is where I'm at. Like basketball is going to be my main focus, even though I continued to play the other sports. It just kind of
Mm-hmm.
solidified it.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn that year? I asked that question because every time I do these interviews and every time I talk to people that have the journey you have, and even not just with sports, but in corporate America, dealing with the challenge and meeting it head on, that Mamba mentality that Kobe had. What did you learn about yourself? Because we look at the accomplishments, the state championship, but what did you learn your freshman year when that happened? What did you realize about yourself and just about the game of basketball?
Um, I actually, what I think most took away is that I don't need to talk about it. I just need to let my actions speak louder than any words.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't combat them, and I didn't let them see that it upset me whenever they were talking about me, and the team was all upset because I was a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
The team was closer after they left, and I guess we came together, and that was probably the biggest thing was I didn't quit. You know, I didn't give up. I didn't let them intimidate me. It kind of fueled me to work harder. So then when they did quit, I didn't disappoint them to where I was like, I'm not going to let you see that I wasn't worthy of this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was huge. And then I guess winning state championship was my freshman year. After all of that was surreal. Like, it was just unbelievable. It was so exciting. We played where Michael Jordan played, and he was my all-time favorite. You know, we played in Carmichael, and you know, I actually hit a jump shot from where he hit the famous shot, and I was like, oh, all fired up. It was just incredible, I guess. Just learning not to back down.
No doubt. Before we continue on with your high school career, it's funny you mentioned Michael Jordan. Share with the viewers, because I find this notion that you're about to share very, very interesting. I'll leave it at that. You were growing up, because North Carolina is known for basketball. It's a beautiful state. I was born in Durham, North Carolina. I love North Carolina. But you were growing up not only a North Carolina UNC fan, but a Duke fan, which is like in heaven and hell, or it's they don't mix oil and water. That like in UVA and Tech. It just, how was that? Explain to people that notion.
It was crazy because all of my friends, guys, they were divided.
Yes.
It was either NC State, North Carolina, or Duke. Like, you were no in between. And I don't know what it was. My dad and I both, you know, I guess my mom too, we appreciated both programs. And so it was really hard. And we would find ourselves when we were watching the teams play against each other. Some years we would like the team camaraderie better with Duke than Carolina. Then other years we would feel we would lean towards more Carolina. But then even if one of them lost that we were cheering for, it was like, oh, well, you know, at least that, because those were our favorite teams. So I don't know, my friends would pick on me, and we would have watch parties, you know, where we'd all get together and watch the games.
Yeah.
And they're like, who are you pulling for? And I was like, the world may never know. I was not going to let them know who I was pulling for. So I fit in on both sides.
No doubt. When I found that out, I was like, huh? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Crazy, man. And, you know, I didn't grow up in North Carolina, but I have obviously friends like yourself that did. And you hear about ACC sports and how teachers and administrators, if the ACC tournament was on, they would actually have a TV in the
sir,
or radio playing while you were doing your work. And I was like, wow, the ACC was really, really big down there.
Yes, it was huge.
Yeah. And that had an influence on you. And as your high school career continued, you won that state championship your freshman year. How did the rest of those formative years occur? Like, was it continued success? Was there any adversity? Was there any doubts or any other challenges that you faced? Or was it pretty much you continued to build on what you did your freshman year?
Yeah, we got a new coach, and she was great, but it was just consistent. We never got back to the state championship, but we consistently made it, you know, to the semifinals, or you know, we were conference champions. We were always successful. We just never had quite the core group that we had that freshman year. Weren't as deep on the bench as we were my freshman year. So we were successful. I can't complain about it. It was a great high school experience.
What's the name of your high school again? What was the name of it?
Newton Conover Red Devils.
Okay, Conover Red Devils. Okay. When did it happen for you in regards to recruiting? When was it like, okay, I'm doing well. I started as a freshman, led them to a state championship. I played AAU. When did the coaches and teams start calling? Because everybody I talk to is different, you know, and it's unique in the aspect of, for some people, it's like that Ja Morant situation where they didn't get many offers, and all of a sudden that one school came calling in his senior year. And then some people, because of the school they're at or whatever, they get a call off the jump, and then they are heavily recruited. What was your recruitment like?
Well, it's so different today, because you can't even send letters to kids until a certain time, and you can't call them until it's like later. but you could send letters at any time back then. So after my AAU experience in middle school, I started getting tons of letters, and we just had a file cabinet, but we would separate, put things in alphabetical order. But then the written ones, we had in a separate section because I had learned from my AAU coach that the type ones are just kind of blanket out there. So you can put them up here, but the written ones, that's where it's at. So I had them separated. So I was getting letters along the way. And then in high school, and this it still gives me cold chills, the day that coaches could call you, I was so excited. And I was like, what if nobody calls, Mom? What if nobody calls? And it was early in the morning before school. Bonnie Henriksen from Virginia Tech was my first call, ironically. And she was like, I'm getting ready to jump on a plane. I heard the noise in the background of the people calling her flight. She was like, I had to wait. I just had to get on the phone with you first and just let you know we're interested. And so then I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So just her being the first phone call is so ironic now because she's my all-time favorite coach of all time.
No, mine, one of mine. I didn't even play for. I played for a legend in Coach Beamer and Coach Steinspring and Gentry and all those guys, and I loved her at Tech. I mean, we'll talk about her legacy in a minute and the impact she had on you. I mean, that had to be amazing because when you got there, you guys took Tech's program to the next level, but we'll get to that in a second. But just to get that call, you're waiting, the anticipation, and you talk about even now the euphoria you feel, the chills now when you reflect on that moment, and then to get that call and for a coach to say that had to be inspiring, just a great feeling.
Motivational, extremely motivating.
Yeah. What did your parents say? What was their influence on this whole thing? What was their insight they provided you?
Complete support. We talked to my AAU coach about the recruiting process and the questions that I would need to ask them. But my parents always, they were never intervening on the phone. It was like, this is you. You're doing this. You need to mature. You need to ask these questions. You need to feel comfortable doing it. And then we would go through. My dad was, oh my gosh, my dad just absolutely loved watching me play all sports, and so did my mom. But with basketball, that was his thing with me. And he would get off of work at night, work until 7 or 8, get off, grab an apple, and take me to the gym.
Grab an apple.
Yeah, I mean, he was so supportive. And then when all the college stuff came up, he would be the one that would really research the programs, their success, history, campuses. We would go up and do AAU tournaments in Roanoke. And he was like, I think we need to go through Virginia Tech. And I was young. I was like, who? And he was like, Virginia Tech. And I was like, in the 7th grade, they weren't no ACC team right then. So I didn't know. And so I remember driving through campus and he was like, wow. He was like, this place is gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. It is
beautiful. So then when they were recruiting me in the top 25, I remembered the campus because it was breathtakingly beautiful. So he was that support. And then mom was just mom. I could have had 9 turnovers in a game. She's like, baby, you played so good. And dad's like, no, you didn't. They were awesome.
Yeah. Hearing that is just a reminder for everyone that has a child or even a niece or a nephew that plays sports, or even if it's music or whatever the interest is, even if you want to go into the field of engineering, that parental support and adult guidance is so essential. And you were blessed to have that. And
100%.
You were blessed to also be in an environment where you were supported and they inspired you and motivated you. So when you get that call from one of my favorite coaches, Bonnie, were there other coaches that follow suit? Were there, did other schools come calling? Let's talk about what happened as far as, okay, Tech was that first call. You felt the love, but were there other schools that came knocking, came calling?
Yes. You had to narrow it down to 5 visits.
Yep.
And so when I finally narrowed it down to 5, it was Carolina, NC State, Tech. I don't remember. UNC Wilmington. And they were my last. And I almost just went there because I liked the coach. It was Kay Yao's sister.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And it was out on the beach. So I was
Mhm.
like, they're gonna put me out on the beach. I'm gonna go check this out. And one of my former teammates was there. So I went and hung out with her. So it was kind of a neat one. And then I cannot even think, my mom and dad are gonna kill me right now. I can't think where my 5th trip was. Oh, South Carolina. So I did visits to those, and Carolina was an immediate turnoff with just the way.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. That's what I was
Okay.
going to ask you. I know your fans. You're a Carolina girl, and I heard your top 5, and I'm thinking Virginia Tech building a program. We weren't even in ACC yet. Women's sports, you know, they had to work twice as hard. Carolina, childhood favorite. UNC, Carolina Blue, and they had a legacy. Marion Jones, who was an All-American track runner and basketball player, and it was a turnoff?
Well, it was a turnoff because, one, the coach was pretty nasty. They lost the game, and I saw the way she handled herself when I was in the locker room. And that was just really kind of and I mean, Sylvia Hatchell's a great coach.
Yeah.
Like, she's got her own legacy, but it just wasn't, it didn't feel right. And then when I asked the question when I was there, like where I was at, when our AAU coaches were like, you got to be number 1, or you're probably going to sit, you know, if you're number 2. And I think with them, I was number 2. And so I had no interest. It was either 2 or 3 with them. So at that point I was like, well, they're on the back burner because, you know, I don't want to go in my freshman year and sit the entire season. I want to be able to earn some court time. You know, I knew I wasn't necessarily going to start, but just earn some time.
Hold on, go back, because this is your spotlight, and I'm not looking for a hot take, but people want to know. I'm sure people watching are like, wait a minute, you said she was nasty. I want to know some juice. Was she calling was she calling players out? Was she saying it's your fault? You know what? You know, I mean, she was blaming. She was getting real.
Oh, she would blame, but then she would also ignore, like just like walk out, like ignore them. And she ignored me. And I was a recruit that she brought in. So I was like, she's not even trying to impress me at this point. So that was, I mean, I can take a tough coach. I had my share of ones that did coach different ways. But I mean, so I could man up and do that. I would have no problem handling that. But I guess the kicker was just when I was either 2 or 3 on the list, it kind of made it easier just saying, well, you know, push that up.
And just remind me and everyone watching, what was the name of that coach? And I think I remember.
Oh, I do not want to say that.
Okay, well, we got Google. Everybody Google those years. No one Lisa played.
She's got a great legacy. I mean, she was a fantastic, successful wise.
She was very good. She was very good. No, but you know what? Regardless, you that worked to Hokie Nation's benefit. We got to see the legendary Spoon become one of an all-time favorite and all-time great player. So the other schools just kind of worked themselves way out of your picture and it ended up being Tech. Besides the campus, what sold you? Because people, the OGs, the old heads know Tech used to be in the Big East. And some of the sports teams were in different conferences until in the 2000s in 04 when we joined the ACC. But before that, you guys were in a different conference in the Big East. What sold you on Tech? Because you mentioned legacy and history. Before you, there were some very good players. Lisa Leftwich, they had some good years, but they still weren't getting the just due because they were building a program. So what sold you on going somewhere where you had to build the program?
Well, they were very successful the year before when I signed. I think it was when they were in the top 25 I think they were like 24 or 25.
Yeah, they were.
They hit. So they were successful. And so that was interesting because it was like, we can build something. I guess what sold me was Coach Bonnie and Coach Beth Dungenberger. Like, I really loved their personality and just, I enjoyed watching, you know, them practice and, you know, just the way they had the team together, and the team was amazing. I mean, they were so grabbed you. And I remember Stacy Brown is the one that housed me, downtown Stacy Brown, 6'6". I was 6'6" of her. She was like, "No, you can have my bed. I'll sleep on the floor." And I was like, "No, no, no, no. Like, you know, I'm tiny. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll sleep on the floor. I do not mind." And she was like, "Girl, you know how much trouble I get for letting you sleep on the floor?" She was like, "No." She was like so great, and talked and laughed, and the team was just awesome. And it felt like a team when I went, like the way the coaches had them together and dealt with them. The atmosphere was just like, it grabbed me. And then of course we went to a football game, and that was just
Oh yeah.
outstanding.
Oh yeah.
Heck yeah.
But you mentioned Stacy and Lisa, and there was Jen Price. They did have a camaraderie, and
Oh
because I
yeah.
was a student athlete, I was around them, and the family atmosphere was definitely there. So that really helped. You looked at that. You looked at the attributes and the intangibles of the program besides just what you saw on the court. It wasn't just about playing time. You really got grabbed by the campus, the family atmosphere, and the respect they showed you even on the visit.
Exactly. And coming from such a close family myself in a
Mm-hmm.
small town,
Mm-hmm.
it was just very welcoming to see. I mean, they were funny. Terry Garland, the point guard at the time, she was so funny. Oh my gosh. And then her and Jenny Root, now Jenny Price, they would get together and they would laugh. I mean, Lynette, it was just so fun to watch. And I was like, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jenny. Jenny, and shout out to Jenny, man. She's a big supporter of Victory Life, her and JC and Lisa and all of them. I smiled because, we were in school together and they were funny. They were characters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were. They were characters. And I love watching them play too. But you chose tech.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have what they had, like now, social media wasn't out back then. So now they put the hats on the table and there's a press announcement and, I'm taking my talents or whatever. We didn't have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat back then, obviously. Did you have like a cookout or did you surprise everybody? Were people back home in North Carolina like, yo, you going to Tech, not UNC? What was that like?
I don't think so. I think the school did something, or like with signing day or something, but
Mm-hmm.
no, I kind of just, everybody just kind of found out through the grapevine,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because there was such a thing as a grapevine back then. It was the only way you kind of found out anything. It wasn't no cell phones, nothing to post and say, "Hey, my girl's going here."
Mm-hmm.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was a write up in the newspaper, maybe.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Um, the Hickory Daily Record and the local news or
Mm-hmm.
something. But yeah, I guess it was just, all my close friends. I had already told them because they're like, "Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go?" And a lot of my friends were going, to school, to North Carolina, to
Mm-hmm.
state, to Appalachian State, the
Mm-hmm.
local schools. And I was going away. And I can't really say away. I mean, Tech was 2.5 hours from our house, and so was Carolina and Duke. So same distance, just out of state.
Yeah. So you ended up graduating, going to Tech, obviously. You were a scholarship athlete. Um, I'm gonna ask you this question again, is a theme I'm doing. What did you learn at that time as you started to get to Tech and you've now transitioned from high school? Are you thinking, okay, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be? Or, you know what, low key, I'm scared. Or I'm gonna go here and kill it again. I'm gonna show them again. What was your mindset then? What you learned about the game, yourself?
Whew.
Where you at?
Um, I learned the first pickup game that we had in fall season that I got put in my place real quick.
Humble pie.
It was great. I went down I drove in the lane and thought I had a clear jump shot. And I can't remember who it was, came out of nowhere and put it right back down in my face and knocked me to the ground. And I was like, I ain't coming in there no more. And if I do, I'm gonna dish that. Because I was like, I'd never played with such tall
Mm-hmm.
girls. I mean, we had guards that were 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
And here I am pushing 5'5".
Mm-hmm.
Even though on my roster I was 5'7".
Oh, there we go, basketball.
Yep. But I was pushing 5'5", and I was little. I hadn't been in the weight room like they had, so I was like this little thing. I mean, I was holding my own, but I definitely realized I was like, I've got a lot to learn, a lot about this game to learn, because at that level, you start learning strategy,
Mm-hmm.
why it's important to keep the ball on one side of the court. You know, I was straight up, I felt like I was the best defensive player on the court, you know, and I'm all around reaching, people were going by me. And finally I was like, now I figure out why I'm supposed to do this. So help defense can be there. You know, you learn so much about the game that it was a great opportunity for me to get some minutes, but to realize I have a lot to learn.
No doubt. And that's important to share, because when you're a fan or when you watch a game, you don't understand the behind the scenes journey. You may think you do, but there's a lot of humbling situations and learning and life lessons that go along with becoming a good, even an average player or a great player. You have to learn. And there's a transition from high school to college, which we all go through if we're privileged to even be in that position. So you get to Tech and you're talking about those quick lessons you learn in pickup, and you're learning how to play with your size. When did it all start to take off, you know, after Lisa and everybody left and Jenny? When did it become your time? And talk about some of my other favorite teammates, the House Wrights, Terry.
Oh yeah.
You guys after Lisa and Jenny and them left, y'all had your own characters. But when did it become Spoon's team? When did you kind of get your chance to shine? Do you remember that first game?
I started my sophomore year. Terry Garland left. So it was kind of the perfect timing too, in terms of when the recruiting process was, because I knew I had a senior point guard in front of me. I was going to learn from her and then hopefully take over the reins if I proved myself. And so, you know, Bonnie had left at that point. So my sophomore year, we had a totally different coaching staff, which that was difficult. And so we were not good. In fact, I thought we were flat out just not very good at all. I think we barely were 500 that year. We had great players, but I think that was the year House Wright got pregnant.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was crazy because, she was like this crazy girl off the court, and she was so fun. And all of a sudden she missed class or something, and they were like, 5 a.m. we're running in the field house. So we're down there running for her, right? And she's gonna laugh when she hears this. And
y'all running for her?
We're all like, mad at Michelle, man. We are mad at House Wright. We are so upset with her. And then all of a sudden she falls out, and it's like, I'm cramping. And it was like, oh hell no, you're not.
You fell. Okay.
Yes, she was literally like, she had to go out, and we were like thinking she's totally like trying to get out of this, and she's a hard worker, so we thought it was weird. And then we found out, oh crap, man, she's pregnant. Bless her heart, she's been trying to battle through everything. So I think she's one of the most inspiring athletes, to where when she left and came back, it was a lot of motivation for us, because it was like, she was so good. She was such a good player, and she would go head to head. And she came back and started training, and just a huge part of our success.
That's amazing. She came back. I remember that whole thing. I forgot about that she got pregnant, and I remember that now that you bring it up in this interview. And I remember she came back. Do you recall, like when you guys weren't good? Do you recall ever thinking, you know what, deuces, I'm transferring? Because now, and again, not picking on today's kids, women and men, young men and women, but now everybody's in that transfer portal. Now they're like, hey, mom, they call you. I'm coming home. I'm out. I'm going here. Did it ever cross your mind when you go from having an all-time great coach in Bonnie, and then a new coach come in and you guys start struggling?
The only time it crossed my mind was my freshman year. Coach Alfano had such a harsh way. I mean, I threw an errant pass one time, and she was laying up on the side things by where the media sits behind. She was laying up on there, and she was like, and she had to block the ball from hitting her. And she gets up, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm standing at the top of the key, and she comes up and throws the ball at me, and she pops me in the forehead, and she was like, you are the dumbest point guard I've ever recruited, and I could have spent less money on a toss back.
Whoa.
And I was like, okay.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
What?
no joke. And I was like, okay, I know I'm a little like squirrely with the ball right now because I'm just learning, but that was a little harsh. And Beth was like, I'm so sorry. Don't worry about it. You know, we were kind of scared of her. She was like this little Italian. And I think Bonnie really used to buffer her and kind of coach.
Mm-hmm.
So when she left, that was the only time that I remember calling my dad. And I was like, listen, what happened? I mean, I was almost in tears. And I was like, I don't know why she hates me so much. Like she just degrades me all the time. And dad basically was like, suck it up. You know, he was like, you're a freshman. And he was like, you have to earn that respect. And so he was like, I'm not going to let you talk to me about this right now. He's like, I'm not going to let you get worked up. And he was the one that was just pretty much like, suck it up. You'll figure it out. You always do. And so that was the last time I ever talked about transferring.
Yeah.
Because ended up my sophomore year, I was playing. And at that point, everybody was trying to get Alfano out anyway. So it was like, we might have I knew we had great players. So it was like, maybe we'll have new life my junior and senior year, which happened.
Yeah. You know, you talk about what that coach said to you. If you say that now, you have
Oh
kids
gosh.
to pay for it. You're going to be on Fox 5. You're going to be in hit. I mean, you're going to be fired. I mean, we live in a way more sensitive
Terribly
society.
sensitive.
You can't even. I coach and I work with teenagers all day long. You got to be very strategic in what you say when you hold them accountable.
Right.
It could be a CBS documentary if you call them out.
Yeah, exactly. 60 minutes.
It's just different now, man. You know, you talk about your toughness because we're going to get into the ACC play and some of your big wins and who comes back to coach you in a second, because that was really special. I was leaving, but I want to talk about a coach that we both trained for, and he is also himself a GOAT, and that's Mike Gentry. And
Oh,
Mike Gentry has helped some of the greatest athletes, men and women, in Virginia Tech history. And the thing about it is he was in such high need and priority. He didn't coach and train all of Virginia Tech sports teams. So if you got time with him, of course, the football team, we got priority. That was his bread and butter. And I get it. Then the basketball team, men's basketball. But I mean, he had an admiration for you, which many people don't know outside of maybe the football team or whatever. And even a lot of football players may not know. He thought you were special. And he had high regard of respect for you. Talk about what Gentry meant to you and what he would do with you and what he would talk about.
um, very high expectations for his athletes in general,
Mm-hmm.
which I liked. But he transformed me, like in terms of just my body and strength and pushing through, you know, persevering. Perseverance was a big word, you know, he had used. Not cutting corners. And I don't know, he was so hard on us, but in such a positive way. Like when you'd get through it or accomplish it, you know, he just got all excited and fired up, you know. It was just Coach Gentry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had shared this story with you. It was really cute. When I used to hang out with some of the football guys, and we used to do those box jumps, those triple box jumps. And he'd time us. He'd time us. And I have no idea if he was lying to them, but the fact that he was like, you know, Witherspoon women's basketball beat all your times. Like, and he was like coming down on the football players. And then they were telling me, they were like, man, Spoon, like, you know, he's busting our chops because of your time and whatnot. But it made me feel good that Gentry would, you know, use me as an example, whether or not it was true or not.
Mm-hmm.
At least I knew that he knew that I worked hard, that I was a hard-working athlete.
No question. And I still love him for the life lessons and the mentality he gave me now. And to have that man's respect, the way he felt about you and other gentlemen and women that played for him, it's a special thing even now, 10, 15, 20 years later.
Amen to that.
So you got the coach that leaves, and guess who comes back to coach you?
Oh, Bonnie walked right through that door, and we were all like, yes. We were so, you would have thought we won a national championship just seeing her face. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when she comes back, you guys are, you know, euphoric, you're ecstatic, rightfully so. What did that mean for your career individually? I know it's a team game, but what did that mean for your career?
Like, she made my career. I mean, she made all of our like success, because she went back to the fundamentals. She demanded the little things. And a lot of these players she had recruited. So she knew what we could do. And she knew that she could get the best out of us. And we were not the most athletic team ever, really. I mean, we had some great athletes, but we played some really athletic programs. But we would get that W because we worked together and we believed what she said. I mean, there was a time we were joking. It was like if Bonnie told us to go up in the bleachers and stand on our heads for 10 minutes, we would do it. We would just listen to it. We wouldn't ask why. We wouldn't say, why, that has nothing to do with basketball. Nope, we just trusted her. I mean, we really earned, or she earned that much respect from us.
No doubt. Take me in the locker room, take me in the film room, take me in the meeting rooms, because now I'm an old head, and guys, you know, when I'm doing interviews for myself, or people talk to me even at the barbershop or over dinner, they want to know what it was like to be around Foster and Beamer and all the great coaches I was around. And I talk about the same things, but just give me a glimpse of what it was like. What made her great? Was her strategy? Was she able to see the game within the game? Was it her ability to dissect defenses? What made her so unique for you and your teammates as a coach?
Number one, I think she was just natural. She was a natural coach. Like, she knew how to relate to players in general. And each one of us needed something different. So she didn't treat us all the exact same. She would, you know, work towards our strengths and weaknesses and knew how to challenge each one of us differently, depending on who we were. But I would think the one thing that starts it, I mean, trying to watch film with her after my senior year, the woman never slept. I mean, when it was basketball season, it was like she was going to watch this team and our team offensively. Then she's going to watch it defensively, maybe 2 or 3 times each. And then she's going to go watch the other team. And she's going to do the scouting report for them offensively, defensively, to where then when she came in, I mean, talking about prepared. I mean, it was almost like talking to the other coach. Like, here's what we're going to do on offense today and how you're going to defend it. I mean, she was just that passionate, and it kind of bled out onto the court where we were always prepared. And she demanded the little things, even warming up. I mean, if we were not, you know, passing the ball with our outside hand at one point, or if we were just kind of going through the motions, you didn't do that with Bonnie Henderson. I mean, she wanted the little things. And I think that's really what made us work harder and paid off.
No doubt, no doubt. And it showed on the court. And let's talk about some of those ACC battles. Not just ACC battles, but battles in general when she was there. And what do you remember about some of the upsets and wins you had when she was coaching you guys?
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, I guess the wins are more memorable. I mean, the losses we had were talking points. They were teachable moments. You know, even though our wins, we still broke down our weaknesses in that win. The losses were never from Bonnie, like, you failed, you were awful, you know, like what I heard in the North Carolina locker room. It was, you didn't look good, you didn't play good, you know. She would go through quick, but she didn't dwell on it. You know, then she was going to cut down film and show us, you know, the next day in practice, what she was talking about and where we need to step up individually and as a team. So the losses, I mean, I guess George Washington was always a big one because they battled us and they were always ranked in the top 15 or you know, they were always a good team. And so junior year, I think they got us one of the times. And Xavier was the same way. They were ranked. And so those losses were difficult, but the wins, like I mentioned to you before, Duke, that was probably the greatest win going into my senior year because we were ranked pretty decent, and Duke was ranked 4, and we're going to play Duke, and of course that was the one team I always wanted to get a letter from or go visit. And they never, ever sent me a letter. And it's like, dang it. So we're going to Duke, and I was dying to play in that gym, you know, because it's just legendary.
Yep.
But if they're ranked number 4, and we're undefeated going into them. So I was like, man, you know, we can't let them take us down. And they had the girl that could dunk.
Yep.
You know, everybody at ESPN saying Duke's got us and all this different stuff. And so we go down, end up winning that game, and it was by a point or two. It went all the way down to the wire. And we celebrate like we just won a championship. And Bonnie is stoic and calm as usual. And she gets us into the locker room, like, shake their hands, let's go. And she comes in clapping, and she's got her grin, the Bonnie grin on her face. And she was like, great game. And she was like, can you do me a favor? Can you just act like you're supposed to do this? She was like, you are that good. We're going to win these types of games, but
no question.
You got to act like you're supposed to win these games, you know, and we're all laughing because we're just like, we just upset number 4 Duke, like away. Like, this is great.
In Cameron.
But that was huge because she was so calm about it. She didn't come in like, woo. It was kind of like, you guys are that good. Start recognizing it, because we are going to play a lot more teams just as tough, and you better expect to win, you know?
Yeah, you definitely did. I remember that game. And I also remember a game you lost, but it was an NCAA tournament. I believe it was in the Sweet 16, right? Against Tennessee, the Lady Vols. And I remember watching that. You know, obviously my season was over, and I was watching it in collegiate suites. I remember where I was, and I remember seeing you and Terry and everybody. Y'all were taking it to the Lady Vols that year. And I want to say, I'm getting old, but I remember they had Shamika Holsclaw.
Oh, they had the 3 Meeks.
The 3 Meeks, yes.
Yep.
And they were loaded. And everybody leading up on ESPN and everybody around campus is like, well, it was fun while it lasted. And, you know, they're going to get killed. You know, even though we were fans, we wanted to see you win. You know, athletes and even fans can be, you know, realistic unless you just want to be delusional and hope that a miracle can happen. But I remember having so much pride in being a Hokie that day. And I don't really do moral victories, but you guys were just taking it to them. And the announcers watching the TV were just in like awe. And I remember you diving for loose balls and clapping and getting your teammates back on defense. Do you remember that game and how it was to play on that stage in the tournament? And you see on the court side, on the bench, Pat Summitt, you know, what was that like, you know?
Well, you know, it's funny. Bonnie had us so well coached going into that game that we were all like, we're getting ready to pull an upset. You know, like, we didn't go in like they got the 3 Meeks and it's the best team in the country, you know, and it's Tennessee, you know. We didn't go in. We honestly went in thinking we're pulling an upset. We're gonna, you know, we're gonna make everybody look at us differently here.
No question.
We were battling, you know, we were battling for a long time. Second half, I mean, number 1, we just got worn down. You know, number 2, we got into some foul trouble. And you can't make any mistakes against Tennessee. I had quite a few turnovers. They started, I think Pat Summitt had mentioned after the game, all she wanted to do was keep the ball out of my hands, because I was the creator. And so they started, these big 6'4" trees are coming after me, you know, trying to, you know, double team me. I can't see over them to throw. And I'm trying to back up, you know, and so I had quite a few turnovers, and that was the first time I've ever been in a situation where, you know, I really didn't handle myself fantastically. We started adjusting to where my teammates would come behind me so I could get out, but that's when they kind of made a run and went up on us a little bit. We still battled. We kept it close enough. But if I was going to lose to a team my senior year, it would. I had no problem saying they are a better team. You know, they're a better team.
Yeah, and they were, but at the same time, it was great to see that, even though it sucked losing and it's the tournament, but it was great to see our program on the map that day, and to see how I saw Pat Summitt's face. I remember how upset she was calling those timeouts, and she would get in your face. And I remember thinking to myself, man, this Bonnie, Coach Bonnie, man, she's a great coach, because you could just tell you ladies played for her, and you played hard for each other, very similar to how we did for Beamer, and that's the mark of a great coach. And I know you feel honored and blessed to have played for her along with your other teammates. That was really cool, you know.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
much so.
yeah. So your career eventually ends at Tech, like all of us. It eventually ends. Um, what was next for you? Because it's interesting for women's basketball. You know, now there's the WNBA, but even now it's awful how they pale in comparison to pay. And you hear all the women athletes talk about how they're still fighting for the benefits they should be getting. So for everybody, it's not even about going to the league or going to overseas. It's about, okay, I got a degree. Now what's next? Um, what happened for you? Like, you know, for some guys, I remember I had a plan. I knew I was going to go and do the NFL thing. If it didn't work out, I was going to go to grad school and do what I'm doing now with Vicktory Life. But for some guys, they really want to be in the league, and, you know, women as well. They want to coach, or they want to just, you know, take a break from sports. What was it like for you? Was it abrupt? Did you have a transitional plan?
Um, I did. I mean, I had planned on either coaching, and I had my teaching degree. So it was either I was going to go straight into teaching, or maybe play around with coaching somewhere. I, I knew there was a thought where it's like, okay, I could go overseas, play over there. I could try out, but I knew I wasn't going to be a great professional athlete. You know, I felt like I was a very good college athlete,
Mm-hmm.
but you get up there and professional, it's so fast and big and, you know, strong. It wasn't my speed. I like fundamentals,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of just an up and down and one kind of when you get to that level. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, nah, they'll shoot me up. So I ended up teaching for 3 years, got my master's, went up to New York, ran a children's fitness facility for a while, and then came down to the University of South Florida to begin my doctorate work, and never left.
And you're a doctor. You have your doctorate.
I do.
And I'm gonna just say this: as much as I love seeing you play basketball and your teammates, and as much respect I had for your feistiness, your leadership, being the floor general, I have so much more respect, or just as much as respect, I should say, as you being a PhD.
I
I don't
appreciate
think. uh, I mean, come on, man. That just doesn't fall. You don't get an offer in the mail. That's not just something you can do.
that.
And being a student athlete, you and I both share the same mindset in regards to the demands. We know what it took to be at a school like Tech or wherever you go, to have to commit yourself athletically and academically to sustain, you know, focus and the tiredness. You talk about coaches, you know, we put that work in too, and we're not paid. We get the perks of, you know, scholarship and meal plans and things like that. And then to say, after I'm done playing, I'm gonna keep going to school, and then you end up getting your doctorate. You take pride in that?
Oh, I do. What was interesting is, once again, tech. I was in the program, and the graduate students were teaching us how to teach, and I was like, I can do that. I want to do that. I want to do what they want to do, or what they're doing. And so, you know, I wanted, and I started to talk to my advisor, George Graham, who was like a second father to me back then. And he was like, well, you got to get your PhD. So you have to get your master's first. And he's like, and I don't want you to go out and get your master's for another couple of years, because you need to get experience,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to have experience when you get your PhD to show that you've been in the schools. So it was like a stepping stone, so slow stepping stone. So then coming to get my PhD, I didn't even like to read and write, be honest with
Mm-hmm.
you. Like I was never the kid that was like, oh, just, you know, I'm going to read a book for a couple hours and just chill out. Oh, no, no, no. Reading a book was like pulling teeth. It was like, where are the cliff notes? Like, I just, I just did not like reading. So getting this PhD was complicated to wrap around my head. Like, I'm going to have to be reading a ton, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
really know like what I'm talking about. And so I think playing ball at Virginia Tech, time management skills,
Yep.
having to be up early, and if you had to be in the training room before you went to your 8 o'clock class, and then afterwards, and trying to manage late night dinners plus your homework,
Mm-hmm.
I think that made it a lot easier for me to get
Mm-hmm.
through my PhD. And it was like a 4-year program, and I did it in like a little over 3, I think. And I actually defended when I was pregnant with Kenzie.
Wow.
So it was, I honestly think my sports career really helped along with that degree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned your children. You know, and it's funny, man, because you see yourself walking around campus. Back then, we were just young kids running around, you know, sore, working out, got a game and class and midterms, and life comes at you fast, and you blink, and you're a parent, and your kids are athletes. Are you as patient as you were with your teammates, or is that feistiness come out on your kids when you're
Oh
trying to get them?
no, I'm much more patient with them. Maybe like Kenzie, her attitude's like mine. She's incredibly feisty,
Mm.
and she does not like to fail at anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if she can't do something, you can see it all over her face. So it's like I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to get her to understand failing's part of life. But I was the same way when I was 10. Like I was like
Mm-hmm.
feisty too, and we get all emotional and upset. So I know that comes with maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she's like my world. Like
Yeah.
she rides horses and she's feisty, she's considerate, she's a sweetheart. Yesterday I woke up to all of these notes on the microwave,
I saw that. That was
just out of
so
the blue.
so cool.
And then she had my coffee ready, and she had a note in the mug that said check the creamer, and then I went to the creamer. It was like, you're the best mom ever. And it's just little girl for you. It's like she just made my entire day. Like she just lights me up.
Such a blessing. Such a
Yes.
blessing. So, Spoon, you're in Florida, and you're making a difference down there. You're doing your thing. But in regards to one last aspect of your career, which I think is just impressive as you getting your doctorate, is you are in the Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame, and you are an ACC legend. No, no, no. Let's no, for real. I mean, I know you're humble, and you keep it moving. You're always moving forward. You don't, you enjoy the moment, but then you keep moving on and pushing on. But just talk about those two accomplishments and what that means for you, coming from North Carolina, small town, and being always having to prove yourself with men and boys, and then you had to overcome a few injuries in your career, and you had to work twice as hard because you weren't genetically blessed with that size that other basketball men and women have. But you earned a place at the table as an ACC legend and a Virginia Tech Hall of Fame inductee. That is amazing. I mean, that to me is, what is that for you?
Oh, of course. It's incredible. And I think the older we get and we're displaced from it, it's nice that, I know when I was playing and receiving other honors along the way that there were young girls that were small or whatever, and the parents would, stay after games to talk to me and talk about how me being little has kept them inspired not to give up, on their dream because they want to play basketball, but everybody tells them they're too little or
Yep.
whatnot. So I guess getting those awards, it kind of shows determination regardless,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, not, I guess just, it's kind of a teachable moment now with my
Mm-hmm.
kids,
Mm-hmm.
because Jeremy's a senior and he's trying to get, into college somewhere, and some schools are interested, but he didn't have the experience I had, but he doesn't have the work ethic in terms of, I gave up everything, like if we were going to the beach, I I was staying back and practicing and hitting my games and not missing out. So, it kind of teaches him, if you want to keep moving forward, you know, this is the level, Hall of Fame, that's what really that takes if you
Yeah.
want to be that successful.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? Because my kids, I wasn't Hall of Fame worthy, and that's cool. But Mike, I had a great career too. And my kids, they get it, but they look at me like, "Oh, you weren't that good." Or,
Right.
yeah, they don't understand like the work I put in. Like, they don't understand like what we went through with Gentry and the sacrifices you mentioned. You do have to give up a lot if you want a place at that table. of being considered a standout great player. It's just funny to me having kids. They probably don't realize in the same way me, your teammates and opponents and other coaches look at you as far as your talent and how hard you played and how good you were. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
they have no concept. I mean, my daughter has no idea what it even means. Like
Yeah.
she hears the song "Sitting in the Hall of Fame," and
Hmm.
she's like, "Mommy, you were in the Hall of Fame, right?" And she thinks it's like part of a song or something. She doesn't. She just plays the song, and it's like she has no idea what it even means, which is
No
fine.
question. No
She'll
question.
eventually, like when she does figure it out, she'll be like, "Oh, Mom, that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
I really didn't get it."
Yeah.
And the social media today is, I'm so glad we didn't have that growing up.
No question.
I do not regret. I mean, I regret we have it now. It's like we just, we used a map, man, to find our friends' houses and to navigate. We used a map.
Or pull over and ask directions at the gas
You
station.
pulled over and asked directions. I mean, we did pretty good, don't you think?
I know. It's amazing. Got GPS everything sometimes, man.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, this has been a lot of fun. We come to the point in the interview where I ask everybody that comes on the show to share their final thoughts about everything they've experienced so far. I know you're still doing great things. You're still enjoying parenthood, and you're doing everything that you set out to do. And you still have different goals on the horizon. But talk about what you learned so far in regards to your journey as not just an athlete, but as a person, the adversity you've overcome. And what would you say to young women? I know men, you can speak to them too, but young women that are going through hurdles or have to work twice as hard, because despite the progress that we've seen over the last several decades, women still have to fight twice as hard. What words of encouragement or insight or advice would you share to them to get to where you are or to surpass what you've done, to reach their goals and expectations? What would you say to them?
It's a good question. It's complicated. I guess the most important thing is I would never change any of my upbringing in terms of basketball and Virginia Tech and all the experiences there and the great people I've met. I mean, that has shaped my life and it's made me a better person, you know. But to get there, there are a lot of things along the way that weren't easy. And so for young women growing up, it's not going to be easy. If it's easy, you're probably not doing something right,
Mm-mm.
in my opinion. You should be hitting challenges and hitting hurdles, and you might fail with some of them and succeed with some of them. But I guess just grinding it out, staying positive, not being influenced, and being yourself. Just working hard is really what it takes to get to that level. And if you want to play at that level, it will probably be the best experience of your life. Like, I would not take it back at all. The family I've met from there is just truly a blessing.
Absolutely. And well said. And this has been fun, and I'm glad you were able to get on. We had some scheduling conflicts and technical difficulties, but we finally got a chance to work it out. And it's been an honor for me to have you on, an ACC legend, a Hall of Fame inductee, but even a better person, mother and friend to many, and a leader in her community. Thank you, Lisa, for jumping
Thank you
on
so much.
for the Victory Life Legacy Spotlight. And again, like I say, every time we have an episode, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you leave a positive impact and a great legacy. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.